Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to hopefully make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We've got ETH outperforming majors. It's up 3% to broke through 2.7K. We've got Eric Trump predicting $170,000 Bitcoin by 2026 at the Bitcoin conference, and maybe most importantly, we've got the US Court of International Trade ruling against President Trump's tariffs. The president does not have the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs, according to the court. We'll be talking a little bit about that later, discussing the implications and just considering whether the market even cares anymore with that kind of stuff. We'll be talking about that, all of that, as well as just a general conversation on crypto and NFTs. But we also are delighted to say we've got Mando joining us a little bit later, co-founder of Yeet, the new crypto casino, and very well-known trader, crypto participant, working with Ovi on rec brands as well. We've got him joining later in the show, so cannot wait to get into that conversation. We'll be talking markets and Yeet, of course, the new crypto casino. Got Legendary in the co-host seat with me now to kick things off. We're ready to get into it, but just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing here is financial advice. The market is insanely risky and we barely know anything. So do your own risk assessments, use your own judgment, and do your own research. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's going to make up a day that it is. It's Thursday.
Monday. Interesting.
It's Monday. It's the 20th of September. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm ready for fall season. We made it through summer. The markets are still doing pretty well. No, I'm doing quite well. I'm honestly pretty excited about two things this week. One being the interview we had with War Daddy, and me having basically arranged a bit more of my stuff on Hyperliquid, and quite happy with the things I have, with the things I'm waiting for to launch. And we obviously had mentioned I think Liminal on the show, Hyperdrive on the show, so it's cool that there's like new stuff to do for me on there, or to wait on there on the one hand. And the other stuff, or the other thing, obviously is Stay Loud for me. I think I am annoying the majority of my followers with 5 to 6 posts a day on Stay Loud at the moment, but I'm willing to see this through for the rest of the week, given that we had Ultra with us yesterday and he said they want to get it out over the next couple of days. So willing to participate in that little engagement farming experiment, and honestly don't feel too bad about it, because we still have the show, and the show is still focused on the news, on the value delivering, so I can let loose for a couple of days on the timeline is my thinking here.
Okay, two things. The first one, what was the first thing you said?
Hyperliquid,
yes. Okay, so the first thing on that, I always like watching this. I'm just going to share with people. So as you said, we've been doing these dial-ins for a week and a half. Like, we just started it last week, basically. I think this is our 6th interview today with Mando coming up. We're going to try and do them always just following our curiosity, figuring out what we find interesting, and inviting people to talk for, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something like that. But the Hyperliquid one has done, I always like watching the like to bookmark ratio, Legendary. The like to bookmark ratio on the Hyperliquid interview is 78 likes to 48 bookmarks. I think that's pretty good. It's pretty strong. There's 48 people bookmarking that, being like, right, so gotta go and go to Hyperdrive or whatever, the Liminal, whichever protocols that War Daddy shared. Also just got loads of positive feedback separately from people in general, specifically about that conversation. So yeah, I'm just very, very encouraged. I think we're going to do that a lot more.
And I think you could see by War Daddy's mood that he's been doing pretty well on Hyperliquid.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he also has media experience, and so he's like an exceptionally good guest. So there's certain people who have media experience, and so they're like set up and they know how to do things, but better. I thought he was an awesome guest as well. On the Stay Loud stuff, personally, I haven't been a fan. We had the conversation with Ultra yesterday. I think it's important to have the conversations and like ask the questions, and then everyone can kind of form their own conclusions. The only thing that's specifically interesting to me, let me say two things. One, the experiment angle. I don't like calling things experiment. It reminds me of when everything DeGods used to do was an experiment. And basically, it's like wild speculation. It's like, oh, we call it an experiment, and someone's going to make a ton of money at the expense of loads of other people. But so I don't like that framing necessarily. But the thing that I think is interesting in this case, and remember, you specifically asked this question, which was helpful to kind of get that out there so people understood, is that the people who are getting rewarded from this will get rewarded in Sol, right? So it's not like the sell I'm sure some sell pressure will come from KOLs, but like this different mechanic than that's been designed is potentially interesting in the sense that some of the sell pressure is going to Solana instead of it being in the token, right? That was the one mechanic where I thought, okay, that mechanic is interesting, but in general, kind of indifferent. What did you think about the mechanic?
Yeah, I think exactly to that. There is a way that this could play out that everyone who's been farming mindshare, including myself, gets wrecked, because and today's is going to have the article by Ultra where he's going to talk about the initial distribution. So theoretically, there could be a world where this gets airdropped to, well, whoever it will get airdropped to, but Ultra was speaking about a like wide distribution, also like benefiting smaller accounts. And nobody's buying the token, and everyone is just dumping that. And everyone in the top 25 makes way less on fees than they were expecting, and nobody's buying the token, and it straight goes to zero. And obviously, there's still going to be fee earnings on the way down, but nobody's buying that. And that would mean that the whole market decides, well, experiment is fun, but we're not going to buy the token as a result of that. So we'll see if this is the way it plays out. And for that reason, I like it. I feel like the mindshare farmers could be totally wrong, again, including myself. And everyone's dumping the token. There's no buying pressure. And everyone like just cashes in whatever airdrop they get, or it's going to work out and some people will trade that. But I do get your point to not like the experiment wording.
Yeah, not a fan. Although, maybe counterpoint thing that I would say is, one of the things you got to do in the space is comment on all things that are happening. And so talking about the thing that is happening is not in and of itself like a bad thing necessarily. Maybe some people perceive to think that like they're taking it too far, but like commentary is kind of what we're here to do, and people commenting on the hot thing, whatever that is, whether it's virtuals, whether it's some other Ponzi, whether it's Laudio, whether it's something else. It's like it's part of what we're here to do, not just as media participants. That's kind of what everyone else is expected to as well, to be part of the daily conversation. And either way, like I still think it's net good that we do the interview, because that's the most like relevant hot thing at the time. Put it out there, and then people can make their own minds up. Like these things are not endorsements of anything really. We're trying to have the most relevant conversations, and we put the information out there, and people will ask the questions. We're not going to hit people over the head during the interview ever, but we ask the right questions. We try to push people and ask the challenging questions, and we'll see where we get to. So that's the kind of ethos that I think we want to try to do this with, and we'll just continue to do that. So as I say, we're going to continue to do that. I've got Mando coming on later today. We're very excited about having him join us towards the end of the show. But before we get there, as usual, we've got a normal show to run. Let's get you up to speed with the price action. As usual, starting with the majors, we have Bitcoin, which is flat at $108,000. Got ETH outperforming, up 3% to 2.7K. XRP is flat at $2.30. BNB flat at $6.85. Solana flat at $172. Checking in with our other alt majors. Sui's back above Hyperliquid, mainly because Hype has taken a bit of a tumble. Sui's down 1% to $3.67. Hype is down 5% to $34. So that is that there. On the meme coin side of things, we have Doge up 1%, Pepe up almost 5%. See, it's always the case. ETH goes up a little bit. Pepe just always goes up more. I don't know if I need to do a bit of a stronger historical analysis, but maybe just own Pepe. I don't know. Trump is down 1%. Fartcoin's down 5%. SPX, Murad's coin, is up 21%. So that's the big outperformer in these kind of meme coin majors. Pengu's down 1%. Mog is up 6%. So the ETH-based memes are the ones that are doing a bit better today. The Solana ones are a little bit down. That's an interesting divergence from usual. Giga is actually up 18% as well. Okay, so that's that on the meme coin side of things. Getting into the headlines themselves, we have, let me get to the right spot. I don't want to have my DMs on the screen. We've got ETH outperforming, majors up 3%. Eric Trump predicted 170K by 2026 at the Bitcoin conference. There's a few interesting bits of announcements coming out of the Bitcoin conference. I'll touch on some more of those in a second. And probably the main thing, which is more macro political than it is crypto, but it's going to have its effects. The US Court of International Trade rules against President Trump's tariffs. They said that the president does not have the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs. So we're back at tariffs. We're going to have to talk tariffs again for a little bit. Occasionally we have to do that. So we will begrudgingly go in that direction. Notable price action. Sophon launched at a $900 million FDV, settled at around 630 mil. I think there's a bunch of people who have airdrop claims to claim there. I think if it was related to Kaito, if you had certain NFTs, so it's worth checking that out. Wallet Connect token is up 16% to a $1 billion FDV, and Murad's coin, as I said, SPX, is up almost 20% to a $1 billion market cap. Ledge, anything we need to know on the NFT side? What's going on there?
Yeah, you pointed out one of the main bits that I wanted to mention, and it is Good Vibes Club being up 16% to 0.9 ETH. Also saw a 6-figure sale of a pretty rare one as well. Apart from that, the bed buns, which we mentioned the last 2 days, we mentioned them on the way up. So I think we need to mention them on the way down as well. They have corrected down a fair bit, down 30% over the last 24 hours, now back at a 0.32 ETH floor. And other than that, I think the majors are still not doing too much. I mean, Pudgy Penguins, yes, they're up a bit on the day. They're up 2% over the last 7 days, but still went well under the 10 ETH floor. Doodles, other collections down a bit more or flat. So there's not too much movement on the majors, but I think we see newer collections like the Bad Buns Mega ETH or Good Vibes, which is not as recent as a collection as Bad Buns, but has been trending up nicely, getting more traction, getting maybe a bit more volume than the major NFTs for the time being.
Good stuff. I'm going to take us through a couple of other NFTs and the rest of the roundup. Ledge, just in the meantime, just have a check on your mic. I've got a feeling your mic's coming in off the wrong mic because we can hear like a little bit of the outside noise. So just have a check there while I do the rest. A couple of other things on the NFT side. Infinix patrons are up 8% to 22.4 ETH. And maybe one of the reasons that the Bad Buns went down is because there was a little bit of a run on Mega Rabbits on Mega ETH. So there's probably going to be a bit of a correction, or there's going to be a bit of a battle between the rabbits in general, I think. So we'll see how that plays out. In terms of the rest of the roundup, we've got GameStop announcing a 4,710 Bitcoin buy worth around 500 mil. Circle froze around 57 mil of funds related to the Libra coin scam. BlackRock revealed plans to acquire 10% of the Circle IPO. Pakistan government, this again, there's a lot of news coming out of this Bitcoin conference, plans to set up a Bitcoin strategic reserve and they said they will never ever sell them. Cantor Fitzgerald launched Bitcoin-backed lending arm by providing financing to crypto firms like Falcon X and Maple Finance. I think this Bitcoin lending thing is going to be absolutely huge as we move into the next couple of years, especially under this administration. So we'll see how that goes. Vice President JD Vance took stage at the Bitcoin conference as well. We also had an announcement from the New York Mayor, Eric Adams, who plans to issue a BIT bond for New York. So I think these alternative vehicles are going to start to get established. There was a New Jersey County tokenizing 240 bill of real estate deeds on Avalanche. Nansen announced season 1 points program, another points program to start participating in. I think we're staking a little bit of something over there. Clan Dinosaurs have a mint today. And just on the social crypto side, Humanity Protocol is allocating 0.2%, around $2.2 million at its latest valuation to their top yappers and Kaito stakers. So always more for Kaito stakers to get stuck into, as well as yappers. Ledge. before we get into the main headlines, that's the roundup. Anything catching your attention here?
Yeah, quite a few points actually that I want to touch on. The Nansen news, we like the season 1 program with the points starting in a couple of weeks. We've both been vocal about that we've been staking, I think, both you and I, Hype and Sol on Nansen. Are you doing both tokens as well?
I am just doing Hype at the moment.
Just doing Hype, gotcha. And then the other more interesting news, in my opinion, is the BTC lending arm, obviously by Cantor Fitzgerald, and kind of goes well together with the Pakistan government BTC strategic reserve, with that quote that you mentioned to never ever sell those Bitcoin. Kind of makes sense. If you have a lending product, there's other ways to take profit and make money from that other than having to sell the underlying asset, which then also means that not only institutions, but maybe at some point in the future, a couple of years down the line, countries will look to get involved in using, doesn't have to be necessarily a DeFi product, but use BTC as an underlying in a more financialized environment. And I think that per se is a very both interesting and bullish development to see.
I like it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff coming out from the conference, which is pretty interesting. Kind of feeds into the conversation we were having yesterday. Maybe we'll go into that in a little bit, just about you kind of can't overthink this stuff, right? Like all of these institutions, all of these various institutions, countries, governments are just seemingly just going to pile in. So like, what is there to maybe overthink, apart from maybe some of the leverage of these treasury companies? I think still is the key question for me, where there are maybe too many treasury companies coming in a way that is not purchasing in like a clean way, maybe complicating things a bit too much. And so that's the kind of the cloud that I'm kind of seeing at the moment. Okay, that's that. Ledge, anything else from your side in terms of the rest of the market, or should we get into one of the headlines?
No, let's get into the headlines.
Okay, so I think the first thing, probably the main thing to just talk about today, is the US Trade Court blocking Trump's sweeping tariffs. So this is the news that the US Federal Court has blocked all of the tariffs after all of everything that everyone went through as it related to the tariffs. They've now been blocked. The Court of International Trade ruled that an emergency law invoked by the White House did not give the president unilateral authority to impose tariffs on nearly every one of the world's countries. It was brought in two separate cases. The Nonpartisan Liberty Justice Center brought one case on behalf of small businesses, while a coalition of US state governments also challenged the import tariffs. Because obviously this is like, it had a huge effect on all kinds of people, around the world, but also a lot of US companies. So I guess the thinking here is that, is there something that is unconstitutional almost about this action because it affects so many people? And should that action be allowed to be taken by one individual, which foreseeably, in the next administration could be unwound or want to be changed, because this is just one person kind of acting arbitrarily on the basis of like their specific opinion rather than any kind of general consensus that it might be a smart thing to do. So I think that's like what people are, or why it's been challenged. It's obviously been, they said he can't do it at the moment. In terms of the reaction, the White House immediately criticized the ruling, unsurprisingly. I think they also said they're going to like challenge it in some way. They said it's not for unelected judges. They use this phrase all the time, I think. It's not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. President Trump pledged to put America first, and the administration is committed to using every lever of executive power to address the crisis and restore American greatness. On the other side, it was said the law is clear. No president has the power to single-handedly raise taxes whenever they like. So those are kind of the two varying perspectives. In terms of what happens now, it says the White House has 10 days to complete the bureaucratic process of halting the tariffs, although most are currently suspended anyway, to be honest. So we'll see how that plays out. Ledge, what's how's the market kind of responded to this? Hey, what's your kind of take on it? And then like, how's the market kind of responded?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the market response first and then tie that into my take. Market response is an interesting one. We had a bit of a stronger reaction when it comes to the S&P 500 futures, when it comes to the pre-market trading for NASDAQ, with both being up 1.5 and 2% respectively. The Eurozone didn't do too much, which was kind of surprising given the fact that there was this ongoing tariff threat, the 50% tariffs, which obviously got paused to renegotiate at some point later in June. But the Euro Stoxx 600 was only up 0.3, I think 0.3, 0.4-ish%. So not too much of a move. Asian stocks did move a bit. Bitcoin, which was kind of impacted by the tariffs, again, it was pretty flat, as we've said at the start of the show, the last 24 hours. ETH has been outperforming. Then gold is also in a very interesting spot. Gold is basically flat over the last 24 hours. It's pretty much flat as well over the last 30 days. And I think
Let's just, the screen's not sharing if you wanted to share that.
No, didn't want to share and hop through charts right now. And where was I? Yeah, gold over the last 30 days also pretty much flat, or down 0.3%. So it still feels like the market is like flip-flopping around a bit when it comes to those reactions, and that the reaction to that first court finding is a rather muted one. Hasib also has pointed out a similar view on X, saying, called it very surprised that this took so long and markets haven't had a big reaction. Probably part of the muted market response is that a lot of chaos is now coming our way, even if global trade is long-term getting reverted. I think some articles, especially Financial Times, pointed out, obviously, there's more senior courts as well who might be more in favor of Trump. So that might explain a bit of the market holding back to react strong on that. My personal take, however, is a bit different to that. It is, we've been through the first, call it trade war, and the massive escalation with Asia, with China specifically, obviously. Then we've seen the EU part, and EU was basically a 24-hour threat that then got taken back and went into, no, let's pause this and extend negotiations. And it feels exactly like the roller coaster with the decreasing loops we are talking about so often in the show. And maybe now this additional piece of news is just too little to impress the market more than it already did.
Yeah, I think I think it was kind of, we spoke about this on the downside, like when things had gone down a lot, we were kind of looking for a moment where, arguably bad news would come out and you just kind of be checking in to see whether the price would get materially worse on that news. Like there was obviously a period of time where something would hit and it's just like, oh God, we're down super red on the day. And then it kind of got to the point where it was like the market didn't really want to go any lower. And it felt like everything had been digested. The market kind of understood or come to terms with where we were. It feels like that now as well, right? Like, and if anything, the upside here is greater, right? Because in a way, the market kind of come to terms with whatever. I mean, is this a scenario we're thinking about? The market had kind of come to terms with there being a tariff of some sorts, right? Like we had this like terrible worst case scenario. China's got like 150% tariff. It's like some full blown trade war. It then got walked back significantly. And even with the neighbors who are people get along a little bit better, the US gets along a lot better with, that had been walked back. Everything was looking better. And so now it's saying even the small amount of pain that was supposed to take place is now not allowed. And so there can't be tariffs. So I'm just trying to think through the potential scenarios we're working through here. It's like, okay, no tariffs would be good for the market, I guess. Okay, so this is what I'm working through. No tariffs would be good for the market. But now the question I have is Bitcoin kind of became decorrelated from stocks as it kind of started to behave at least a little bit more like gold. So I'm wondering whether we want that, at least if only for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin started to behave slightly more decorrelated from stocks for the first time. Ledge, are you following me here? Like, what do you think about this idea? Where I'm trying to think through the two directions.
I don't think that I would agree with Bitcoin getting decorrelated from stocks. I still think that the Nasdaq BTC correlation is a strong one. The data that Stats had shared at some point indicated that there was also a report that looked at the first quarter and said basically for the first quarter of the year, the correlation between the Nasdaq 100 and BTC was 70%. Obviously, the second quarter is not over, so I don't have updated data on that, but I still think that this correlation is pretty strong. We see individual days where this behavior does not track necessarily. We've seen the same for gold. So I do agree to a certain extent that we kind of got a bit used to live with the chaos and don't react to everything so strongly. I think decorrelation, in my opinion, is too strong of a word. And then the other thing is what I definitely agree with what you said is that the market got to terms with some sort of tariffs, or it even got to terms with the fact that the tariff discussion is probably going to be a recurring theme over Trump's presidency, and it's just figuring out a way to deal with it and maybe doesn't want to overreact on every individual news after, well, it obviously did that in the beginning, but it's now getting used to it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very much kind of digested now. So I guess we just kind of wait and see where it goes from here. We'll be curious on for Mando's take as we kind of move through the show. He'll be joining us, as I mentioned at the top of the show. We've got Mando joining us in around 15 minutes to talk a little bit about the markets, but also focusing in on Yeet, crypto's casino. So looking forward to that conversation. We will ask him for his take as well on that, because I think he'll have a view. Okay, Ledge, what about ETH here? So ETH's up 3%. I keep saying about ETH, like I'm conscious that, we'd probably be people who are described as ETH aligned. And we keep bringing it back up every now and again. We like to talk about it. There is something to believe in ETH. We still, so many of our friends still holding huge amounts. Up 3%, outperforming everything else. What's your thinking on ETH here? Is there any specific reason, or it's just, doing a little bit of catching up? And how do you see things?
Just looking at a bit of data from CoinGlass, which I'm showing on screen. On the one hand, obviously with the moving price, open interest has moved up as well. Open interest is up 6.5% over the last 24 hours. 24-hour volume is up 25%. The more interesting figure to me is to also take a look at the ETF data and see what that has been doing over the last weeks. And we definitely see an uptick over the last 5 days. If we go back 2 weeks ago, the 15th of May, we had outflows of 40 mil. Then we had a couple of days of inflows with 22, 13 mil. And then we had more and more strong days coming in with 64 mil. Well, a weekday is an exception here with 600K, 110 mil, 60 mil, 40 mil, another 85 mil. So it does seem that the ETF flows are picking up a bit as well for ETH. In terms of where we are headed and if ETH will continue to, I don't even want to call it outperform, because it's still a good bit away from its all-time high, where obviously BTC is about to flirt with an all-time high every other day these days. I don't know where this will go. And if we're gonna reclaim 3 or 4K, I still have a good ETH exposure, so I hope it's gonna go up. But I'm very careful or very reluctant to make a price prediction here.
Okay, reluctant to predict price, but the question I've been asking myself, and I had an interesting conversation with a very good trader yesterday. It's like, in the world, I seem to be doing this exercise quite a lot. What do you think about this as a way to think through things? It's like, in a world where Bitcoin goes to 150, where do the other things go? And obviously you don't know how these things play out, but trying to estimate where these things are, I might be with you in the sense that the ETH number is the hardest one to say, because it's the one that's not doing the thing that's supposed to be. So I think yesterday in this conversation, I was like, okay, well, if Bitcoin goes to 150, Sol goes to, I don't know, it goes to 250 or something. Or it's at least there, maybe 300. If Bitcoin goes to 150, Hype goes to triple digits maybe, or something like that if we're in that environment. This is just me. This is me brainstorming, right? Going through the potential things. But if you ask me what does ETH go if Bitcoin goes to 150, it's like, I don't know, maybe 3.5 or something like that. Like it's harder to see the outperformance for me just because of how it's been most recently, which is obviously, it's just using the most recent history as a way to predict the future, which is not how you should necessarily think about things. But it's definitely the one I'm finding it harder to place. Do you have a view on that thought process, Ledge? How are you kind of positioning yourself?
I think I go more with a hypothesis that is formed around where do I think that an asset goes without having like a clear price target. Is like a lot of money is flowing into Bitcoin. We speak about Bitcoin all the time. I said it multiple times. I reallocated a good part of my portfolio to having more exposure to Bitcoin. Obviously, I spend a lot of time on Hyperliquid, and you've been very, very vocal about Hyperliquid, so I'm very happy to have my bag in there. But I don't operate on a like price prediction. I'm not like, if Hyperliquid is gonna hit $80 and I'm out. That's just not how I ever traded. I'm rather the person who is trading out on the way up, and I'm looking at things with a different time horizon. So I'm very, very happy to hold my Bitcoin over the next couple of years. With Hype, I think there's going to be a point to move out of it this cycle and then just wait for the next thing is that we will rotate our capital into. But it just never did well with price targets, and I can't share any because I don't have any.
Fair enough. I actually think that's kind of wise, because like in the end, you're just playing whatever scenario the market gives you is the thing that you need to play, right? And thank you to English in the comments, doing my disclosures for me. Yes, I do have Hyperliquid bags, and in the scenario I just shared, apparently Hype flips Sol. This is I'm just brainstorming here, English. This is not like a this is not even, I haven't even put, it's not even back of the napkin math. This is just like, I haven't even put it on the napkin. It's so brainstorming. But so yeah, okay, that's interesting. One question here, Ledge, before we get into the interview. We're going to be talking just for another 5 minutes on Bitcoin, I think, and then we'll be bringing Mando in. Very much looking forward to having his take on this conversation, as well as getting into the Yeet conversation with what he's building at the casino. So looking forward to that in a moment. But final couple of things, Ledge. Eric Trump predicting 170K by 2026 at the Bitcoin conference. Look, you just said you can't do price predictions. All price predictions are in some ways like speculative and whatever. But I guess the direction I was going to go with this is, what do we think about tying this in with the various Trump family business involvement across the board in the variety of ways, whether that's through, I can't remember the name, the Something America, one of the funds they're doing. Trump Media also announced the 2.5 bill Bitcoin buying vehicle that they want to set up. That was yesterday, one day after they denied that was going to happen. In the same way that I'm thinking through like the risk factors for Bitcoin, and one of them is like these treasury companies that are using the leverage and maybe in stranger ways. Do you think this is this like a risk factor for Bitcoin in any way? Or do you think that their involvement is positive and this is just all part of the next stage of the process to get all the regulatory stuff done, and they're just going to be a part of that process?
I think it's both. I think it's very positive for the time being. It's obviously one of the main reasons the market is liking all of that. It's one of the reasons we've also seen the BTC ETFs being pretty strong. And that is one side of the coin. The flip side then is that the pendulum has swung out pretty heavily into being like pro crypto, and it will go the other way at some point in the future until it finds an equilibrium, and that might be in the next administration. Overall, that doesn't change the fact that I'm like very bullish on Bitcoin and very happy to hold that for a longer period of time. So for the time being, I think it's good. Yes, it can be a risk factor at some point. Basically, in building on what we also said yesterday, I don't think it's going to be a risk factor for every single BTC treasury company, because some of them are way too small. But then again, we also see not only strategy, we now see GameStop buying a more significant amount of Bitcoin, buying 500 mil worth of Bitcoin. And once we get into the territory, then we have like multiple companies or entities holding more than $1 billion worth of BTC. Then obviously one of those blowing up would impact the market. But I think the real black swan still would be something to do with strategy.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fine. Interesting. Maybe final thought here. We kind of ended up going towards Bitcoin a lot today. One of the opportunities that we saw when it comes to Bitcoin is the Hyperliquid Bitcoin opportunity, which is UBTC, right? UBTC is the form of Bitcoin that you can get on Hyperliquid, done by Unit Protocol, who are bringing all kinds of spot assets over to Hyperliquid. The idea is, or the assumption is, that they will be doing a token at some point in time, and they've cornered the asset market on Hyperliquid. They've brought Bitcoin over, they've brought ETH over, they've brought Fartcoin over, they've brought Sol over, and so I'm wondering, well, for people to kind of put it in perspective, that's like, how are you looking at that opportunity? What proportion are you happy to have like Bitcoin on Hyperliquid versus other places? Because typically, I was definitely in one of those in the camp of that I want Bitcoin to be safe, not involved in other things. But this is probably going to be the first time I'm taking the UBTC and like putting it into smart contracts in Hyperliquid and doing stuff with it. But what's your thought there?
So my initial thinking was that I don't want to have more than 15-ish% of my BTC farming stuff, because it's just, too precious, too much of a long-term asset. But because I just wanted to have more BTC over on Hyperliquid, as it is still my favorite of the unit assets. I don't have interest to have such a big exposure on neither ETH nor Sol nor Fartcoin on Hyperunit. I just ended up acquiring a significant excess amount of BTC, so that if I add, that came from basically a pool of stables that I'm still holding. So now it's roughly 30% of my BTC that's active. But I'm like telling myself it's only 15 because the most recent one was just acquired to farm with it, so I can sleep better at night.
So it's almost like you're not using the original stack. You're kind of acquiring Bitcoin specifically for the purpose of playing around with it.
And I'm glad that Funky is only listening today and not up with me on stage and doesn't get to push back on my degeneracy on how I'm treating my sats.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's actually a smart way to do it, to be honest. That's probably a little bit how I've done it too, where you don't really want to put all of your eggs in any basket, I think. So I think that's wise. Look, guys, I think we kind of went in the Bitcoin direction a lot today. So happy to have had that conversation. But as we said at the top of the show, we're delighted to say that we have Mando joining us today. Mando is the co-founder of Yeet, crypto's new casino, also working on Rec Brands, the Epic Duck coin, and he's the author of Mando Minutes, one of the best daily summaries of everything going on in macro and crypto. Mando, good to have you with us, man.
Right back at you. I love your daily as well. It's a daily read for me.
Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
I think this is maybe my first or second. It may even be my first in this show.
I interviewed you before this existed. I think,
yes.
When I had like a personal YouTube channel. This would have been back in 2021 or 2022. So that was like the first time we chatted on this.
Yeah, I think I first met you in Lisbon.
Yes.
And then I'm still here 3 years later. So I think that is like around the same sort of time.
I was watching you guys the other day, and you were just having that conversation of like, who's still around? Like, who's still around from that specific time just to still be here is quite the achievement, right?
I think the attrition on NFT founders in particular has been remarkable. Like, if you do ever create something in crypto, particularly if there's some sort of like speculation element to it, you know, it can really be a grind to keep up the hype over a long period. And what we've lost, CryptoPunks founders kind of bowed out. They've now sold that. Yuga bought it, then sold it out. Gordon had to take a health break. Most of the other senior executives at Yuga had to leave. It's really just like Gaga still there. Cool Cats, I don't know how many times they kind of went through. Doodles has now gone through like 3 different CEOs.
I think they kind of sub in and out sometimes. Yeah. If like I'll go away for 12 months. I'll come back when the market
like that, right? DevTellers, Betty just took a step back. You've seen I'm trying to think which other ones. I guess Izuki, they've still kind of kept their original team, but they were slightly later than everyone else, I guess. But that original group of NFT projects, wild. Who's how many people have stuck around? Which is it's good to see you having stuck around too.
Yeah, good to see you, man. So I mean, just on that, how do you think? What is it about you guys? And you personally, but you guys as a crew as well, talking about Ovi and the crew you've kind of built out with. Like, how do you think you were able to do that?
We burned the boats, so we quit our jobs, you know, and we were all in. So there was no going back after we did that. So there was a period I remember in 2022. Like I remember we quit our jobs in like November 2021, and
I think that was the same time as me, man. Like we were all quitting at the same time. I think I quit two months before you.
ETH was at 4,900, and I remember within 12 months, quit, it was up 900. And you're just like, oh God, what? But I think this what you guys did too, like that is easily it sounds maybe not corny, but it sounds obvious to say, but building a platform, producing regular content, it keeps your mind a bit more stable throughout the whole period. And I think it really helps you to also see opportunities a little bit earlier, I've tended to find, and have a platform for like investing or getting good deals and stuff. It's been really good. So we started doing podcasts in that spring, and then we started doing newsletters similar to you. And this is the rhythm that we're in. Like this has allowed us to do everything else that we've done. Like if we hadn't done the podcast, we wouldn't have been known. Rec Guy may have not happened in the same way that it did. Then everything since then, like it's been built on the idea of us like creating a consistent brand around it, and that's been the secret sauce. I feel like it's now become like there's always going to be that. With Kaito, for example, you can see like the new crop of like, right, I need to be a thought leader. I need to like, I think that's a good like Parrot's return to a little bit more. But it is a lot like to keep it up on a daily basis for that amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you though that it gives you so many more opportunities, but also gives you great data to make decisions from. So fine, there's like the noteworthiness of it. It's like, oh, maybe someone will invite you to something, or you get invited to a round or something. There's that aspect. But even the metrics side, I'd be curious to hear your perspective. Like we told our listeners as well, like in January, February this year, we were getting the most absurd offers. Like people were trying to throw like, you know, AI agents came into the market, right? And they were dressed up as AI agents when really they were just meme coins, and the offers were getting increasingly ridiculous, which was a great indicator for us. I don't think we completely internalized it, but we thought about it after in hindsight, like, wow, that was a great indicator to just start selling stuff. Are there any metrics that you see either on the FOMO hour side or the minutes side that you're writing where like this is kind of crystallizing stuff to you?
Yeah, the minutes side is a very good barometer.
Really?
The first day I've ever net loss subscribers since I've done Mando minutes was the day after Libra.
Really?
And I did tweet about that at the time. I was like, that is very interesting that happens. I think a lot of people just called it quits. They were like, fuck this. Like, I'm not getting involved. That was a little bit late, but you can definitely see like the curves of like influence, and like as you get back towards all-time high, it can be a bit of a leading indicator at certain times, which I think is super useful for me. But it's also the other stuff. Like Legendary was just talking about, like what we're going to do on Hyperliquid with our native Bitcoin. I hadn't even looked at that. So like just actually having a conversation with somebody else in the space every day, and it's let's say it's 2 or 3 of you, it's just so useful. Like you discover so many different things that can keep you interested. So that has been, people always ask like, oh well, do you do so much on a regular basis? Like that must be really tough to keep up. I actually find that the easiest bit. If I don't do the daily show, or if I didn't do a daily newsletter, I think I'd feel pretty lost and be like, I could easily step back and just not be interested for many weeks and probably miss a lot of things. But like the forcing yourself to do that actually makes it all a bit more structured, and I can keep on top of it.
100% resonate with that. Like I would do the modern market even if it would never be a business that makes money, just for the fact that you get to stay on top of the news. You have this fantastic sentiment indicator to use for yourself, and you have something that pushes you to be consistent, and that is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be on a trading desk and we used to do that every single day. So the reason why we decided to actually do the podcast at the start, because me and Ovi were doing a call like this, right, every day. And we were like, well, we might as well just make this a public call. So that's kind of how it started. So you do need this. And it's particularly when you're like trading in a group, or like there's a group of traders together, you're so much better. You are just so much better in crypto. If there's like 3 or 4 of you in a like a small group all sharing knowledge, like those are the best group chats I'm in.
Completely resonate. And as you said, it's kind of counterintuitive, because like turning up and participating a lot means you got to invest more time, but it completely pays off. 100%. You mentioned the trading desk background. I'm sure a lot of people know you as not only the co-founder of Yeet, also working on Rect, and obviously on FOMO almost every single day. But in terms of the market, then, before we get into the Yeet stuff, how are you seeing things at the moment? Like we were talking a little bit earlier about the Treasury company risk, Trump administration, the tariffs. How are you seeing things?
Yeah, there was a lot you unpacked earlier. I think the Treasury company risk is a risk, but maybe not for right now. There was a really good post the other day, which is like, your job right now is to work out when this all turns sour and then be out of the market when that happens. The reason why this is happening with Bitcoin Treasury is because, unlike any other major commodities-based company, you have Strategy now trading at 2x book. That is, and it's trading at 2x the value of its Bitcoin. If you look at other commodities trading companies like Glencore, or even if you look at banks, they generally trade like 1x, I think Glencore trades at like 1.2x book. So, and they properly do stuff. They trade with the assets. They often generate yield alongside a lot of them. Same with banks, right? They are meant to be actually earning from the assets that the bank owns. At the moment, Sailor does nothing, and it gets 2x valuation. Now that hasn't always been there. There will be a point in the future where Strategy trades at a discount, and all these companies will trade at a discount, and there's going to be a call. Strategy is actually hasn't got as much debt as some of these other vehicles that are being created, but there'll be a call, like if GameStop starts trading it below like book value of, or one of these other companies starts trading it below book value of its Bitcoin, they'll just sell the Bitcoin. Like this trade makes sense right now, but there will be a point in time where it can turn, and there'll be a lot of calls for them either to consolidate, i.e. the ones that trade above valuation buy the smaller ones, or they sell the Bitcoin. And that's a case for, I think, in like a couple of years, but for right now it's a good thing. In terms of just like top down, what I've been doing more recently, I have been, from about 2 weeks ago when ETH had that first break to 2,300, I've gone long ETH, and the first time I've really gone long ETH in about 18 months.
Why was that?
I just feel like it. I like buying assets in crypto where when they start to rally, people feel the pain, like they've sold out. And this is the first time since obviously the Pectra upgrade that I just got the sense that if this continued to rally, it was going to cause quite a lot of pain. Like ETH to 4K, I think is a real pain trade for the market. I really do. I don't think it's a, oh, everyone shares that upside. I think ETH rallying and Solana going lower, I think is a mega pain trade for this market, in my opinion. So I am like you, Legendary, in that I have a big amount of Bitcoin, but generally my more degen bets, as in like my let's try and outperform, had been Sol and Sol ecosystem. I moved it all to ETH and ETH memes. So I owned a decent amount of Pepe, Mog, ETH as like my three biggest like bags for playing there. And obviously we have Rect. I have Epic on Solana, but in terms of like actual trading positions, which I felt like could match the market, I've put on a lot of ETH beta for the last 3 weeks. And that at times you feel like, oh God, this could drift away from me again. But I feel as though whenever it rallies, I can feel the market's offside.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. What about, you might have heard us also talking about the decorrelation question. Like maybe there was a period of time in the tariffs when the tariffs were maybe hitting hardest, Bitcoin was showing like a little bit more strength than stocks showed. Do you see that continuing now? Is the tariff conversation even worth having anymore? Like the impact seems to be dampening each time, even though obviously if they do go through in the way that they are planned in any form, it will have a huge material impact on the economy. So what's your kind of view there?
Tariffs, I just feel there's a lot of unknowns right now. And I think the market was pricing in the worst possible case. And now it's returned to this unknown. It can be volatile on certain headlines, but you know, they still might be able to push through certain levels of tariffs. But it feels as though, you know, a lot of the stuff that Trump kind of got elected upon is drifting slightly away from him here, I would say.
Did you see the spending plan the other day?
Right.
Went through?
A lot of like, if you look objectively of what he came on, I'm going to end the wars. Hasn't really happened. I'm going to get our budget deficits and our 10-year yield to a better spot. 10 years rising back towards 5%, and he's just put in a massive spending bill. I'm going to be able to secure the border. A lot of, you know, they've been challenged in the courts by a lot of more local level judges, let's say, and that's kind of what's happening even here with some of the tariffs. Like they're facing a much trickier process in the judicial review of these sort of policies than I think they perhaps expected. And it's just interesting to see, obviously his popularity has gone up a lot, but this is not, I think, what a lot of people, at least what is being delivered, is now starting to drift quite far away from what actually I think is going to happen. And even with the tariffs, it feels as though the bond market called his bluff, right? Like, and then he walked it back. And I think there is a real worry there. Like every 1% higher in the US 10-year, like that's another $300-400 billion. Like that's crazy. That really would hurt. So I don't know there. The bond market, I'm kind of in agreement that it's still ringing alarm bells. And I think Bitcoin and gold will continue to be seen as a safe haven, even if there's like short-term volatility. Like I feel like that's a secular shift here.
Is there a point in the bond market, which I mean, obviously is the underlying of almost the entirety of the financial market, where you get so worried about the 10-year yield that you're like, I need to readjust massively, whether it is to go even more into Bitcoin or just go completely risk off? Or is that not something you are overly concerned for when it comes to stuff like BTC and gold?
I'm a little bit concerned. I used to trade credit default swaps, which often tell you the credit risk of actually a sovereign. The US CDS spread is at the highest it's been since 2008, and it's not high, but it's interesting to see that happening. But it's not the case across the world. So credit markets are telling you that they think governments are just going to print their way out of this. Now, from now until them printing their way out of this, it can really affect other markets. Like the US housing market looks kind of on edge here right now. Like saw its first month-on-month decrease in 2 years this month, and other pockets of, let's say, not G20 nations, but there's a lot of other like EM sovereigns which look kind of risky. all of these things point to Bitcoin and gold to me. Like all of these countries where they're hyperinflating or people are worried about the local currency, these are big buyers potentially of gold and Bitcoin, in my opinion. So I think it can cause we are probably due some form of a shock here. I don't know if it'll be on the scale of like the regional banks, but like I saw the other day that like a lot of the big Japanese insurers are like down hundreds of billions of dollars. Like there are some like local pockets of risk where you're like, if this goes, it can cause like a bit of a national worry. But I do think the response to that will every single time will be money printing. But we're probably due something happening here. The unrealized losses on a lot of different institutional firms is starting to pick up again with bond yields going higher, and that could be a worry.
Interesting. Look, I think we could probably go a lot longer on this stuff, but talking of risk, definitely want to talk Yeet. Yeet is obviously the casino that you've just started with KBM and Ben Lam, I believe. Just first question, how's it going? You're the co-founder of a casino. How's it been since you started?
It's been a lot. I mean, this started a year ago. It actually probably started a little bit before that. Like we started being sponsored by Rollbit back in the day. And then we like had a look at the business model and we were like, this is pretty interesting. They're clearly using like influencer KOL style marketing. And we've kind of felt like all the crypto casinos, they weren't really crypto native. Like Rollbit came from gaming. Stake had kind of been around for a while, but like it was really more of a Web 2 style casino, and all the other ones just kind of used it as a crypto payments rail rather than being more native. There were some more native brands like Soul Casino or like a few others which are a bit more on chain, but we kind of felt we could come in here and be a bit more. And the other thing is a lot of them weren't trusted. So like there's always been like, oh, these guys are anonymous. There've been some really major rugs in the crypto casino space, and we felt like we could come in and be more of a brand that people knew, could be a, by people that builders that people knew, and we obviously can have a lot of like native marketing channels. So it's been a long time building that. The one thing we're not devs, so it took a long time to kind of get there. And there are a lot of shortcuts you can take when you build these sort of things, but we kind of went the long route. But since its launch, it's been pretty wild. Like a lack of sleep, but a lot of fun. We've done 107. I'm looking right now. 117 million of volume since launch. Is that me?
That sound. Is that sound coming from?
That's not me. We've done 117 million.
Should be muted. There's nothing going on here.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
Sorry.
117 million of volume since launch, which has been wild. Like to put in perspective, Shuffle, which has been a massive, probably the biggest launch of a crypto casino, has overtaken Rollbit in terms of size. They did about 20 to 30 million in their first month. We did about 66. So our launch has been very strong. It's just really like, can we keep this up? We want to make sure it grows at the right pace. But yeah, it's been good so far.
What are your targets? Like, what are you trying to do? You have any metrics? Like, what are you aiming for? If you've got those maybe comparisons and other people who their numbers, how they started off. What are you going for?
We honestly were just trying to hope we would get like that sort of same trajectory as Shuffle, if I'm honest. But like I don't really have targets around it. The targets for me are more around like the business. Like we want to make sure that we now launch a sports book. We want to launch like a ton of custom games, like more crypto native custom games, similar to like the UI UX of trading or doing DeFi things or things in NFTs, and like we want to continue to build out that. And then just like make sure the wheels don't fall off, really. Like our idea is really just like to keep this part of the trust of these sort of sites grows with time, and we just kind of want to make sure that we keep what we were at the start in terms of those like value metrics, remain crypto centric for quite a while, we think, before we like go a bit more mainstream, but then also like, yeah, make sure we don't run too fast, don't make any errors, just do things right. But yeah, look, part of the reason why I did this as well, part of the reason why we were also thinking about this is just that we kind of felt as though maybe this came out from like more of the bear market chat, but like we felt as though people were playing games like this, but with like dishonest metrics about what the RTP was. RTP is like the return to user. So like we have games we have a 1% house edge, but that means like 49.5% of the time you will win, 50.5% of the time we will win. And we felt that people actually were coming in here and trading meme coins or trading NFTs or trading lever trading, and they didn't realize the RTPs were actually just like way worse than that. And they thought that they were playing a game that like was like, oh, everyone will make money. Like if you look at the percentage of winners of Pump Fun, or even of lever trading, like everyone talks about Hype. Why do you think Hype makes so much money, everyone? Like, because everyone's getting liquidated and they pay so much fees. Pump Fun's made over nearly $1 billion. All the trading bots have made over $1 billion. Radium and all the dexes have probably made $500 to $1 billion over the last year. And I don't know what, I think the value of Pump Fun coins is probably 3.5 billion, which tells you like, just to put it in perspective, the games that people are playing and the RTPs are actually way worse in certain instances. Now, I'm not saying that you won't, but I'm not saying like, don't go to a casino to make money. That's not what you should be doing. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is that like, if you are just here actually just to gamble and you just like, look, I just want to have some fun today. You know, I want to do something and I want to keep my Bitcoin. Sometimes it's not the best move to do some of these other things. Like you're actually playing games which are way worse for you on an RTP if you're buying a meme coin above like $10 million and hoping to double it, like, which I think a lot of people kind of are. Like I've played these games and I'm like, oh, you know, I just want to double my bag. Like if I said to you in the next week, I want to double my bag, what would you tell people? What would you tell someone? Like you can maybe trade some meme coins, but like you can maybe lever trade. Like look what happened to James Wynn, or you can trade NFTs, or you could do what you do, which I think is really good, like the airdrop. That's got a much higher RTP like approach, which I think is better. But I don't think that's what people are doing. So I think part of the reason why we also did this is just like if you want to gamble, like and have some fun, we are like there's a more honest, provably on-chain way of doing it, and I feel like there is a desire for that for people in crypto naturally. So. Yeah, that's part of the pitch.
Do you think? Sorry, go on, Ledge.
Do you think that? I think the art, like I'm a gambler myself. I love gambling. I find it super entertaining.
Everyone is.
I've been farming the shuffle airdrop. I am enjoying myself on Limbo, on Yeet as well. So the RTP part is a very important one. But do you think that enough people have even understood that concept of return to player fully? Because I've been recently in a conversation with people who are like looking at gambling related stuff on Abstract, and someone was, oh, I found this casino, and basically return to player is 95%. That's the fairest I've seen. I'm like, go to an online casino. If slots were to have a 95%, not 98.5 or 99% RTP, like the casinos would be printing even more money. So like, do you think that this concept of RTP is already fully understood, and especially in the way you presented it, that you look like I could trade a meme coin on Solana where I don't have an edge and think about that gamble that, you know, I want to double up my bag next week in terms of RTP? Or do you think that this basically connection is not there yet in CT? And are you planning to like kind of educate around that?
I'm not going to educate about it, because what I would say is that meme coins and perp tradings are still games of skill for certain players.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
I think the vast majority of people are not those certain players. I think the vast majority of people are coming in at the non-skill based level, and they're just there to roll a dice and see if they double up or not. I really, really believe that. And that is what you see from the data. Like the amount of winning wallets, I think it was in the NFT cycle, was about 5%. Perp traders, it's slightly higher. It's like 10 to 15%, but meme coins, it's also like 5 to 10%, right? These are remarkably low numbers, which tells you like the winners are really people who are early, who are like really disciplined traders. Like we've seen with, you know, I wouldn't say necessarily Frank, but like there are people who are consistently making money doing this and with perp trading, but that's not what a lot of people are. So they're still games of skill. So the concept of RTP is slightly different. But if you are sitting there and you're just like, I own Bitcoin And I think Bitcoin's the best bet, but like occasionally I just want to see if I can like double up. I think I would do what you're doing, which is like being really early airdrops or higher RTP stuff, which like it's very accretive over time. Like, or if you're just there, like I just want to see if I can win. I think people play some really, really bad games. If they knew the RTPs of the games that they were playing, particularly for the wallets that they are, which is like essentially when meme coin trading makes money is when it becomes PVE, right? This kind of PVE. PVE is just when like the Ponzi means that more people are coming in. And then when that collapses, it collapses spectacular, a la Trump or Libra, and like all the gains are essentially wiped out. Like, but the RTPs of those games are wild. And you like, I was thinking to Tyler about this like 2 months ago. The stuff that we just forget about, right? There is a lot of survivor bias in crypto. Like we only really compare the stuff that like is stuck around. But like we were all talking about pain. Do you remember pain? Do you remember pain? Like 2 months ago, what happened to that? Like that whole thing. Yeah. That was like seen as like this big thing, and everyone was on the timeline talking about it, and then just gone. Like there's stuff that just goes and never comes back, and like no one ever even talks about, but was like the biggest thing. Happens all the time in crypto, and I think you can get really caught up in those as well. Like you are really just caught up in hoping that somebody else is going to pick up the narrative later than you. And those, if you were to compare that game versus a Plinko game or a dice game, which is 49.5% of the time you're going to win, each roll, like a single roll. I wouldn't say, like, again, I'm not saying this is investing style, but if you're in that mindset of I just want to see if I'll double up, there are some really bad games people are playing.
Yeah, it's a really good concept for people to just think through those percentages, which is obviously going to be helpful as they try to navigate the space better. The other thing you mentioned there was like about being maybe more reputable, more known and out there. One of the other things that I thought was interesting from a crypto casino perspective, because I hadn't seen this before, you guys raised 7.75 mil from Dragonfly. It was a very prominent crypto VC. You had notable angels like Luca, Santiago, Wizard of Soho, all get involved. I've never seen Dragonfly do a gambling investment before. I thought they were far more kind of on the infra side. That's what I've seen them participate in the most. How did you kind of make that stuff happen? We've had a bunch of people asking about, people are always interested in the funding side of things. So how did you kind of make that happen?
Difficult, actually. Funding one of this. We started our funding round in December 2023. We started kind of having conversations, and then
that's actually way longer ago than people might expect now that you kind of hit your stride. Yeah,
and then we kind of sealed it with Dragonfly in that January. To be fair, the market started to rally at that time. If you look back, Bitcoin went from like 25 to like started rallying to like 33, and then was at 60 within a few months. But we didn't close the round until June. There was a lot of due diligence around the whole thing, and part of the reason is the two things I said. Like they would never invest unless it was a trusted team, Doc's team, and also one that was more like crypto native, like one that actually had a unique pitch. I think a lot of VCs are potentially interested in investing in this sort of stuff. Like this, I used to trade gaming and casino firms when I was a trader. And these are huge companies, right? Like you look at there is a big group of investors and VCs that invest in this space in traditional markets. Like look at all the sports books that get invested in the US right now. That's been huge in the UK for a long time. It's been huge in Europe for a long time, South America. It's just in crypto, it's always just been like, oh God, like this is like I can't touch this, or like they're gonna rug me next week. So it took a long time for them to get on board, but then they've been useful. But they were a useful partner for us because, like I said, we were non-technical, so we came from like a more like TradFi almost background. So they kind of helped build out the tech team, and they've been really, really good in terms of VCs. But yeah, it's not easy. I have to say, we've tried to raise 3 times, me and Ovi, throughout the years. We originally tried to raise for Degens as a platform for NFTs, and couldn't get it done. No one wanted to invest. We tried to raise for Rec Guy, and with the whole Rec Drinks thing, and Ovi kind of got it over the line, but it was not easy. And we actually raised less than we planned to, and we were kind of like, it was more like friends and family than any VC I don't think but that was kind of purposeful at the same time, but that was not an easy time. And then when I've done it recently with Yeet, again, it was a 6-month massive due diligence process. It's not, I found it really difficult to raise money in crypto. Like it's not the easiest thing. So when you see a big team raise a large amount, I'm always like, wow, okay, that takes a lot. I think for some chains, it's kind of a little bit easier because you can like double dip, but yeah, it's not the easiest thing.
How big is the team currently?
Team is about, well, it depends because we have a large like mod team, but I would say it's 12 developers and about 18 marketing and ops staff at the moment. So it's just over 30 when you include like extra mods and stuff like that. And
you mentioned previously the one thing you want to approach it from a more crypto native way. You've been focusing a lot, I would say, on the originals. And for those people who don't know, so basically, what are the originals that casinos like Stake, Shuffle, Rollbit have? It's the games like Limbo, like the coin flips, like your crash version where you run up a number until the rocket crashes. If your multiplier that you bet is lower or equal the number that the rocket climbed up to, you win exactly that multiplier. And you did those games in a more crypto native way. You have the Minter, where you basically simulate minting an NFT collection, having a common, an epic, rare, legendary, all of that, which then translates to a different multiplier. Do you plan to specifically release more originals that go into the crypto direction? And follow-up question on that, do you think of a way to find a social integration? I know Rollbit has those bonus hunts where I can buy a bonus game for a specific slot. You can do the same, and whoever wins the most takes the entire pot from everyone. Do you think about a social kind of, I don't want to call it PvP gambling because it's not, but say like a social gambling aspect as well? Yeah, so this is why, although we're not on chain, this is kind of where we try to keep the crypto culture. So part of the reason why I told you about all those RTPs of the other games, we were like, right, well, let's just create the same experience, right? Let's create the experience of trading a meme coin. Let's create the experience of minting an NFT. Let's create the experience of futures trading or doing something in DeFi, right? But we'll just give people better odds. So like, it's actually quite similar. So like that is definitely a thought around a lot of the games that we are going to do will be like an airdrop game, a DeFi game, a perp trading game. Like, and if you're just there to do that and you just want to have the experience of that, we can like, you can just come do that with us and you might get better odds. The second bit of that, I think, which crypto is PvP. Like crypto really likes PvP battles, so we want to bring in more of those sort of games, and that will be a range of different things, but like again with maybe like a crypto interface around it, so like a meme coin PvP battle, or like there's a few different like concepts we've had, but like again try and keep crypto element to it. And then the final thing will be because Ben Lamb's in the poker world, like that's another like world that we've kind of courted, and there'll be a lot of like poker based customs. But yeah, I think our custom games will really be games that people who are in crypto will probably get very, very quickly. And we just think that those are good, like, yeah, they just work well for this space. That's first bit. Then the sports book, we're looking to launch that. That was kind of purposefully after the launch of the casino because there's a lot more complexities with that, and you kind of want to test the pipes, but that's going to be coming. And then who knows in the future, like we may move into other things like perp decks. Rollbit have more like spread betting, but we want to do like maybe potentially a perp decks, or we might want to do maybe some on-chain games. Maybe we'll release like, you know, you can come play on some of our Yeet on-chain games, and we'll sustain some level of liquidity at all times for them. We've got a lot of ideas, but yeah, it's going to be a busy next 12 months. Gotcha. I wanted to ask about the sportsbook as well. Another question that I have might be a bit more tricky. If someone is an avid gambler, is used to say the likes of Shuffle, where they can gamble like pretty crypto natively, and then he finds Yeet and would ask you, what is the key difference between Shuffle and Yeet? What is something that you're focusing on that is different to what Shuffle does, or where's the direction that you want to go that basically you see as the biggest differentiator from a platform like Shuffle?
Yeah, I think Shuffle's done a really good job, actually. I would say that, like, I'm very complimentary of like how they grew over the last couple of years. What I would say is, if you're coming over, firstly, we tier match. So if you're a big player, like, you can come over and pretty much get exactly the same rating. Short term, the differences are things like we have different sorts of games. I feel like we're going to have a bit more interaction potentially with the founders. Like, we are in all the chats. We've had like a poker tournament midweek, which was a lot of fun. Like, there's a bit more of that, which I think most of these other casinos keep a slightly more arm's length, or they lead to like VIP hosts. So like, you're going to feel a bit more part of a community. We're rolling out community events like every day. So if you're just got nothing to do at 2 p.m. every single Eastern every day, we're going to have an event, like, and it'll be something fun that you can hang out on Discord, and so it's going to be a bit more of the stuff that we know from NFTs and community building, which I think some of these others slightly miss. We obviously have an airdrop, which I think maybe changes again some of the RTPs that we just spoke about. Like, if you start factoring some of that stuff in, it can be relatively lucrative. And I don't know about the other stuff. Like, I think some people like to know the founders, see them as like more trusted. I think Noah from Shuffle is docs, but like the rest of that team is the FTX team, right? So there's something about that as well, which is like, I think we're a slightly different background of people. So and this may lead to a path for us to trying to get licenses. Like, part of the reason why we want to have that sort of view is that we can then go in and maybe try and get a license in the US, try and get a license in Malta, try and get a license in these places. So like, there's a path there to like more traditional iGaming.
And I think branding, just as one quick comment, I think the branding part is a super important one. Like, I noticed myself that Keyboard Monkey is hanging out KBM is hanging out in the chat, and this basically brand layer on top of gambling, I think, can be a very intriguing way to build user loyalty. I would definitely agree with that. Sorry, B.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Make that human touch, I think, is important. I'm conscious of time, Mando. Want to just maybe ask a couple of things as we close out. Sure. What's the opportunity now? How can community participate? And what are we looking forward to? What are you looking forward to most on the timeline here? Next iteration of the product, the airdrop. Where do you want to take this?
Yeah, I think we're really looking forward to, just for Yeet, I'm looking forward to the sportsbook and the custom games, and obviously just come out and I'm not going to tell everyone like come and gamble. Like, if you're a gambler, try out the site. Like, it's fun. We're all going to be there. There's a lot of community events, like I just said. It's going to have the community aspect feel of like an NFT project, we think. So like, if you just like to hang out in a Discord, like, or a Telegram, like, we're going to have a lot of those and have funded events kind of happening a lot of the time. So it's going to be a good place to be. I'm excited about a bunch of things. Like, I'm super excited about what OSF's been doing with Rect. We're going to have integrations, because all of this kind of comes under Canary Labs too. So like,
sure.
Whereas we decided to kind of like really branch off into like him controlling a lot of that, or at least directing that on a day-to-day basis. He advises us on this, and I advise him on that. And then I'm super excited for some of the stuff he's doing as well with Canary Labs and even some of the other projects that we're doing. Like, I think that this allows us then to bring together a lot of this stuff. We like I said before at the start of the show, like, we started doing the podcast, and the podcast allowed us to do this and that. Like, we've always tried to add stuff that can like benefit the other things. So like, yeah, we're gonna try and push Rect for all the streamers that now come on to Yeet, and similarly as well, like that, which can be very big in the streaming world, right? Like, some of the biggest drinks brands recently, the more viral ones, were to do with streamers, like being big on them. And then we might have like collab drops around that too, and then that might extend to like 3 or 4 other things that we're kind of doing. So I'm also excited just to bring it all together at various different times and make sure everyone wins.
Yeah, some of this like strategic thinking, what kind of from a bird's eye view here, where there's something bigger. Everyone's off like doing their own individual thing. but this is all kind of tying in together with like some pretty awesome synergies between them, I think.
So much you can do. So much you can do.
That's awesome, man. So look, unless there's anything else you want to share, I just want to let people know. I'm sure they are familiar already. If you want to follow along with what Mando's doing, @RectMando, of course, is the personal account. And then there's a selection of accounts, which because he's doing so many things, as usual, you've got @Yeet, you've got Rec Brands, of course, you've got Epic Duck Coin and Uncaged as well, which I think is the marketing arm of work.
They're working with Red Bull at the moment.
There you go.
Yeah. Look, I love the show, guys. I'm a big fan. I'm glad I've managed to come on. You guys, I think it's got probably one of the best ROIs of any show out there right now. Let's put it that way. Like, you guys are early. I think you guys pick up on stuff that people generally will make money on. I really like your guys' content. So congrats on the success.
Appreciate it, man. Right back at you. You've been tuning into FOMO Hour, and also this other one you're doing, the DCA one as well. That's that's
the Monday one. A bit more macro, that one. Bit more boomers.
Yeah. It's going well. I've been enjoying that too. So as I said, thanks so much for joining, man. It's been great to have you with us. As usual, for those listening in, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live for 1 hour on X Video, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify too. Take care. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you guys.